Fire moves like a decision you didn't get to vote on. It doesn't ask what the photos mean or how long it took you to pay off the couch. It takes what it can and leaves you with what you didn't know you had. Breath, a heartbeat, and a choice. If you've ever watched a life you loved vanish in one terrible minute, this story is for you. His name is Caleb Brooks, 29, forklift operator by day, weekend uncle. The kind of neighbor who drags everyone's trash cans back to the curb so the wind doesn't swallow them. Wichita, Kansas, rental duplex near the old rail line, where trains sing like distant wails at 3 a.m. On a Tuesday in January, the apartment smells faintly of chili and laundry soap. Caleb is halfway through a replay of the Chiefs game. A space heater ticks in the corner like it's thinking too hard. The smoke alarm coughs once, then twice. He frowns, stands, and sees it. A tongue of orange under the bedroom door, an animal learning to run. He yells, "Fire!" Even though he lives alone. He grabs his wallet, his keys, and then, on instinct, his dad's old guitar, the beat-up Martin with a cigarette burn at the sound hole. He reaches for the photo shoebox and the flames clap like a door slamming. Heat hits his face. The decision is made for him. The hallway is a wind tunnel. The outside air tastes like pennies and winter. Someone across the street shouts into a phone. Sirens start small and get bigger. He stands in the alley in socks and a t-shirt, the guitar case banging against his knee, the sky pinking with reflected flame. He watches his front window glow like a bad sunrise. He can smell the scorched plastic of last year's Christmas lights and the 6 feet of paint. A firefighter with Sanchez on his coat says, "You got out fast. That's why you're standing here." He presses a blanket around Caleb's shoulders. "I'm sorry, man. There are questions. Insurance. Cause, faulty wiring. Maybe. Is there somewhere you can go tonight?" The property manager arrives, hair wild, breath white. The neighbor from 2B, Mrs. Patel, slips shoes into Caleb's hands. Her son's old Nikes. They're a size too big. That's what mercy often is. At 4:12 a.m., the fire is mostly water and steam. The front windows are teeth missing. The firefighters pack hoses like it's a funeral for something no one knew. Caleb looks at the black mouth of his home and feels empty enough to echo what nobody tells you. Survival is loud, and the quiet after is louder. Morning comes like a dare. The Red Cross volunteer hands him a packet. Numbers, a motel voucher, tiny shampoos rattling in a gallon bag. He sits on a motel bed that smells like lemons and old smoke and makes a list labeled "Lost" on the complimentary notepad. Sheets, towels, TV. Work boots with the good insoles. The mug with the cracked handle that only leaked if you were careless. Letters from Dad written on legal pads that curled at the corners. The 9 plants he'd kept alive against their instincts. 3 concert ticket stubs that meant more than the music. He writes everything and stops. He doesn't know where to put the part of himself that lived there. He showers until the water cools. The mirror fogs, then clears. He looks like a person who owns exactly what he can carry in his hands. The guitar case sits in the corner, scuffed, stubborn. He touches it like it's a friend that made it out. On the second page of the notepad, he writes 2 words he didn't expect. Still here. People show up in lopsided ways that count anyway. DeAndre from the warehouse brings a duffel of t-shirts and the kind of hug grown men pretend is for warmth. His sister Lena, not related, but family, Venmos him $50 with a note. For socks or tacos, whichever keeps you human. Mrs. Patel texts, "We have extra blankets." And rice. Rice feels like love wearing a disguise. Caleb goes back to the shell of his apartment with an officer and Sanchez. The air inside tastes like a tire. Every step pops something fragile under his boots. He sees his couch melted into a low tide of plastic. His bookshelf is a spine. The photo shoebox is a black brick that used to be birthdays. He wants to roar. He wants to sleep for a year. Sanchez puts a hand on the doorframe. "You got out," he says. "The rest? We'll figure out the rest." On the way out, Caleb diagrams a sentence in his head like he's back in 7th grade. Subject, me. Verb, figure. Object, the rest. Add an adverb, slowly. Add a clause. Even if I don't feel like it. The motel TV talks at him. He mutes it and stares at the ceiling. He remembers something his dad used to say when engines failed and you still had to get to work. We can't afford to give up, kiddo. Good news. We don't have to. Caleb flips the notepad to a fresh page and writes 3 lines. The kind of orders a person can follow when their brain is smoke. Stand in the daylight. Tell the truth. Make one thing better today. He tears the page out and tapes it to the inside of his wallet behind an expired library card. He doesn't know if it's enough. He knows it's something. Day 1, stand in the daylight. He walks to a strip mall laundromat just to be around microwaves of normal. The winter sun is a cold coin, but it counts. He buys a toothbrush and a pack of socks and doesn't apologize to himself for the cost. He calls insurance, sits on hold until the music becomes a language, and answers questions without pretending he's okay. Day 3, tell the truth. He posts a short message on Facebook. Apartment fire. I'm safe. Lost most everything. I'll let you know if there's a way to help. He does not add humor like a bandage. He turns off notifications and lays his phone face down. People bring grocery gift cards and secondhand pans with holy dents. Day 5, make one thing better. The motel room lamp hurts his eyes. He walks to the Goodwill and finds a heavy ceramic mug with a chip that looks like Oklahoma. He buys it. He makes motel coffee that tastes like courage pretending to be coffee. It's terrible. It's his. Day 7, pick up a tool. At the community center bulletin board, a flyer. Habitat build, volunteers needed. Saturdays. He calls the number. A woman named Joy says, bring gloves if you have them. If you don't, come anyway. He shows up in borrowed boots. Someone hands him a hammer and a nail apron that makes him laugh out loud because he can't remember the last time a stranger trusted him with anything that could make a mark. Day 10, learn a new word. Framing. On site, he meets Charlie, 64, retired teacher with hands like baseball mitts. Charlie shows him how the skeleton of a house goes up. Studs, plates, headers, the way doorways get born. Stand here, Charlie says. Feet wide, like you're telling the ground you mean it. Caleb swings, misses, swings again. Wood makes a sound he wants to hear again and again. Yes. Day 14, make a room tell the truth. He clears a corner of the motel room, wipes the wobble of the mini fridge, lines up the few things he owns like they matter because they do. The mug, the guitar case, 3 books someone dropped in a paper bag. He unscrews the bright, buzzing bulb and replaces it with a warm one from the dollar store. The space exhales. So does he. Day 18, tiny fitness. Grief burns energy like a bad engine. Caleb and DeAndre walk laps at the high school track in puffy coats. They curse the cold and then agree it feels good to move. 1 mile, Caleb says. 1 mile means I kept a promise to myself. They high-five with gloves. Day 21, the budget that doesn't hate me. Lena sits at the motel desk with him and builds a spreadsheet he can keep on his phone. Every dollar gets a job, she says. Some dollars rest. They're tired from carrying your life. He names a line build back fund. He puts $10 in it. It looks small and true. Day 25, a real meal. Mrs. Patel insists he come over. Her kitchen smells like ginger and garlic and the kind of warmth that gets under armor. She sends him home with leftovers and a Tupperware he promises to return and will absolutely lose. Day 30, first back to normal. He goes back to work. The warehouse feels the same and not. The beep of forklifts is the language of continuing. He lifts pallets. He stacks. He counts. He waves at DeAndre from across an aisle that suddenly seems like another kind of river crossed. Day 36, build for someone else. On the Habitat site, he spends 3 hours installing window trim slow enough to be prayer. A woman in a blue coat walks through the frame that will be her living room, holding a toddler who points at everything like naming will build it faster. Caleb wipes his eyes with his sleeve and blames dust. Day 42, permission to start small. He buys a second cup for the motel room because he remembers what it felt like when people had enough cups for guests. He invites DeAndre over to drink motel coffee and watch a game on the smallest TV he's ever owned. They talk mostly in groans and, "Did you see that?" Feels like church. Day 49, a plan that fits in his pocket. He draws a rectangle on a napkin, tiny house sketch. 8 by 24 feet, loft bed, galley kitchen, a porch that insists on chairs. He looks up building codes on his phone and texts Charlie a question about trailers. Charlie calls back and says, "Come over. I've got graph paper that needs to feel useful." Day 56, the hard conversation. Insurance denies something he thought they'd cover. He wants to scream. He calls. He asks for clarity. He writes down names and dates. He doesn't apologize for being thorough. He gets partial approval on appeal because he asks and asks again. He learns, polite is not the same as quiet. Day 60, the yes that matters. The community center offers storage for reclaimed materials. The contractor down the street donates 2 windows and a front door with minor scars. Character, the contractor says, like you. Caleb runs a hand over the door and feels his chest hurt in the good way. He whispers, welcome home, to a thing that's not built yet. Day 70, first cuts. Saturday, he and Charlie lay out subfloor on a trailer a guy on Facebook Marketplace swore was solid, and turns out to be exactly that. They measure twice. Caleb learns to let the tape measure talk. He drives screws so straight it startles him. Day 86, the wall that stands. He frames the first wall with its window like an eye opening. The moment it goes up and the bracing holds, the Kansas sky rushes through and he laughs that wild laugh you hear from roller coasters and newborn rooms. You see that? He says to no one and to everyone. Day 100, music again. At night, he opens the guitar case and plays the only 3 chords he can remember with the kind of gratitude that tunes itself. The old Martin smells like smoke and pine and his father's jokes. He writes a song called Still Here and doesn't hate it. Day 120, the porch. Caleb builds the porch first, a superstition he invents and believes in. If there's a porch, people will come. He salvages a bench from a curb alert and sands it until the wood remembers how to be touched. He paints the rail a color somewhere between sunrise and mustard. Welcome, the rail says, and maybe he's the only one who can hear it, but that's enough. His boss, who had been making weird eye contact around the subject of time off, pulls him aside. You handled this like a pro, he says. We've got a lead opening on days. I want you to apply. A teenager from church messages. Can you teach me to use a drill? Mom says only if you say it's cool. Caleb brings him to the build site and teaches him to respect tools and to measure with his eyes first, then the tape. The kid beams like he found a map. Mrs. Patel starts leaving extras at his door in the motel. Soap, a plant cutting in water, a note that says simply, keep going. The cutting grows tiny white roots in a jelly jar. Caleb sets it in the motel window and calls it Hope until it deserves a better name. Lena arranges a housewarming preview in the community center parking lot. Folding tables, crock pots, a plywood wall everyone signs in Sharpie with their best piece of advice. DeAndre writes, bolts before blankets. Joy from Habitat writes, rest before you break. Charlie writes, doors are just walls with better manners. Caleb wipes his eyes again and says it's allergies. Nobody argues. In April, a storm slaps Wichita sideways. Rain drives under the pop-up canopy and turns the build site into cake batter. The strap fails. 2 wall sections kiss the mud. Caleb's stomach drops so hard he has to sit down on a bucket. I can't, he starts. He wants to say do this, but the sentence is too heavy to lift. Charlie hands him a thermos lid full of coffee. You can, he says. You just won't want to for the next 11 minutes. They tarp what they can, stack what they can't, and drive to the diner on Hillside that serves pancakes the size of hubcaps. At the booth, Caleb stares at his hands. They look older and truer than they did in January. He laughs suddenly. 11 minutes? He asks. Sometimes 12, Charlie says. But never forever. They go back after the rain and raise the walls again. Mud rubs off. Lessons don't. Summer sneaks up and then sits full in your lap. The tiny house grows ribs and bones and skin. Insulation itches like a dare. Electrical makes him nervous until it doesn't. A retired electrician named Ms. Dorothea shows him how to respect the language of wires and what to say back. He listens with the same face he used in junior high when Mrs. Price finally made fractions make sense. Caleb sets the sink with help from a guy named Moose, who is either a moose disguised as a man or a man determined to earn his name. They shim and swear and then laugh because the bubble lands where it should. Moose claps Caleb on the back so hard he nearly swallows a screw. They install the front door, the one with character. When it swings and latches and the click sounds like a period falling into place, Caleb leans his forehead against the cool wood and lets a quiet sob break open. He builds shelves meant for real things. The chipped mug, a row of paperbacks that smell like basements in summer, a small ceramic elephant his niece made in art class that looks like a potato and is perfect. He tacks strings of low light under the loft so the space glows like a promise but doesn't show off. He writes house rules on a scrap of OSB with a Sharpie and sticks it inside a cabinet door where only he can see. And no apologizing for breathing. Shoes by the door. Shame too. Feed people when possible, yourself always. Keep the porch light honest. On a Sunday in August, the house is not done. It never will be if you do it right, but it is ready. He moves in with a mattress wrapped like a burrito, a cooler that thinks it's a fridge, and 3 friends carrying things and laughing too loud. Mrs. Patel brings rice and smiles like a sunrise. Joy brings a fern that looks expensive. Charlie brings a set of measuring spoons because he says judgment-free baking is the secret to civilization. That night, Caleb sits on the porch steps and watches fireflies do their pixel magic. He pours tap water into the chipped mug and drinks it like champagne. He looks at the rail he painted a stubborn color and the door that clicks like a sentence ending, and he understands something dangerous and beautiful. Lost isn't the last word. The tiny house is a beginning, not a trophy. A week later, Caleb posts a photo of 2 hammers and a plastic bin on a card table. Community tool library, pilot. He writes, "If you need a tool, text me. If you have a tool you don't use, donate it. If you want to learn, come by on Saturdays. We'll fix what we can and point you where we can't." People show up like they've been waiting for permission to help. The roofer drops off bundles of leftover shingles and a caulk gun army. An anti-squad arrives with cookies and judgment for anyone who doesn't eat too. A teenager trades 2 fidget spinners for a measuring tape and then stays to help repair a lamp. The nurse borrows a stud finder to hang shelves for her brother, returns it with brownies, and tears in her eyes because she did it herself. Caleb isn't an expert at everything. He becomes good at saying, "Let's find out together." He keeps index cards on each tool with tips in sloppy print and the names of the hands that used it. The tool library smells like WD-40 and hope. In October, a friend of a friend calls. "There was a fire across town," she says. "Family of 4. They're safe. They lost. And I don't know how to say this without crying. Everything." Caleb drives over with a bin of basics. Extension cords, a kettle, a lamp with a warm bulb. He doesn't say "I know" because grief hates when you compete. He says, "I'm Caleb. Tell me what you don't need, and we'll skip it." He sits on the curb with the dad, and they talk about stupid insurance terms and the smell you can't get out of your lungs. They talk about sausage biscuits and which hardware store has the nice cashier with the purple hair. He shows the kids how a tape measure snaps back, do not let it bite you, and how to mend a garden hose with a kit because the backyard will grow again. When he leaves, the porch of the rental where they're staying has a lamp, a plant cutting in water, a note that says, "Keep going." He knows what that feels like, small and enough. Some stories end with a house, but that's the point of a house, to be where you keep beginning. Caleb writes a list on a new notepad. The Motel 1 lives taped inside a kitchen cabinet now, soft with steam and truth. 1. Stand in the daylight, grief wants the dark. The sun isn't a cure, it's a witness. 2. Tell the truth to friends, to forms, to the you that wants to disappear. 3. Make one thing better today, a screw tightened, a phone call made, a sandwich eaten sitting down. 4. Ask for a tool. Sometimes the tool is a hammer. Sometimes it's another person's phone number. 5. Build for someone else while you build for yourself. It multiplies the meaning and the stamina. 6. Rest like it's part of the job, because it is. He keeps receipts of the miracles that look like errands, of the window that slid into its frame like it had been waiting. The neighbor kid who said, "Can I sweep? I like the sound." The night he slept through till morning and didn't dream about sirens. The way the porch light looks in rain, honest and stubborn. He doesn't worship resilience, he practices it like scales. Some days the music shows up. Some days it's just exercise. Both count. On the anniversary of the fire, Caleb wakes before his alarm. The tiny house is still the kind of quiet that doesn't accuse. He makes coffee, real coffee now, not courage pretending. He steps onto the porch and the air has that first bite of autumn taste. He thinks about how fire took what it could and left him with what he didn't know he had. Breath, a heartbeat, and a choice he keeps making. He looks at the little community tool library. A few bins, a pegboard with gaps where tools live in other people's hands. He touches the door that clicks like punctuation and, just because he can, builds a sentence out loud, to himself and whoever needs it. Lost hurt me, but it didn't define me. Building did. He flips the porch light off. The sun's up. Time to work. If your life just caught fire, literal or otherwise, steal Caleb's first steps. Call 3, insurance or HR, someone who loves you, someone who will help you make a list. Buy 3, toothbrush, socks, a warm bulb. Warm light tells your nervous system a kinder lie. Do 3, walk outside, drink water, write what you lost and what you didn't. Ask 1, can I help build something this week? Habitat, a neighbor's step, a friend's broken chair. Start 1, a little build back fund, $5 in a jar. Watch meaning grow interest. Not easy, not magic, possible. And that's enough to begin. What's one small thing you'll build back this week? Object or habit? Write it below. Then go make one better cut, one honest call, one warm light. If this story helped you pick up a tool again, so it finds someone standing outside in the cold at 4 a.m. Comment, the first thing on your build back list. I read them. Subscribe for a new story each week. Stories that turn ashes into lumber and lumber into homes.